Jung's most disturbing discovery had nothing to do with madness, dreams, or the unconscious. It was about people who never get angry. Not because they're numb, not because they've let it go, but because no one, and I mean no one, could touch them. They were insulted and didn't flinch, criticized and remained curious, betrayed and responded with clarity, not collapse. Carl Jung called this emotional impermeability, a rare psychological state where the chaos of others simply passes through you, like light through glass. These weren't saints or suppressors. They were people who had undergone a transformation so profound, so complete, that nothing external could shake their internal center. And it disturbed Jung. Not because it was dangerous, but because it was possible. Because it meant the things that bother you, the criticism, the judgment, the rejection, don't have to. It meant no one can make you angry. They can only show you where your healing lives. So let me ask you, have you ever replayed an insult for hours after it happened? Have you felt a tone, a look, a slight hijack your entire day? Have you promised yourself not to react, and then exploded anyway? What if I told you you could change that? Not by faking calm, not by building walls, but by unlocking a deeper kind of power. The kind Jung discovered in the quiet recesses of the psyche. What if I told you that you too could become untouchable, not through avoidance, but through integration? This video is not about suppressing your anger. It's about liberating you from the need to feel it in the first place. And it starts with a single shift in perception. Let's start where you live. You're at work. Someone talks over you in a meeting. You're in traffic. Someone cuts you off with zero regard. You share something vulnerable, and the response is silence, or worse, mockery. You try to let it go. You tell yourself it's not a big deal. But your jaw is tight. Your chest feels heavy. You're spiraling, replaying the moment again and again, long after it's over. Why does it stick? Why do other people's words have so much power over us? Why can a single glance, a tone, a comment, rupture hours of peace? Carl Jung had an answer, and it wasn't comfortable. Everything that irritates us about others, he wrote, can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Not because they're right, but because they're reflecting something unclaimed inside you. See, most of us think we're reacting to them, to their rudeness, their arrogance, their lack of awareness. But Jung said, no, you're not reacting to them. You're reacting to the part of you that you see in them. You're not angry because they're arrogant. You're angry because you were punished for confidence. You're not triggered by their coldness. You're triggered because you're afraid of your own emotional dependence. You're not being bothered. You're being mirrored. And the mirror never lies. Here's the twist. This isn't about becoming emotionless. It's about becoming free. Free from the cycle of blame. Free from the prison of unconscious reactions. Free from being emotionally manipulated by anyone, including yourself. This is not self-help hype. It's psychological alchemy. And it begins the moment you stop asking, why are they like that? And start asking, why does this still move me? Because if you can answer that, you'll never be owned by someone's words again. Now let me tell you the story of Heinrich. In 1919, a man walked into Carl Jung's office. He wasn't in crisis. He wasn't depressed. In fact, he said, I feel nothing at all. His name was Heinrich, a steel magnate who had built an empire in post-war Germany. His businesses thrived. His health was strong. But something about him unnerved everyone around him. His wife brought him in, not because he was suffering, but because everyone else was. "Doctor," she said, "my husband doesn't get upset about anything. Nothing rattles him. Nothing touches him." She told Jung something shocking. She'd confessed to Heinrich that she'd been having an affair for 6 months. His reaction? 3 questions. "Are you happy? Do you need anything from me? Do you want to continue our marriage or end it?" No shouting, no collapse, no revenge. Jung, at first, suspected repression. Surely this was numbness, suppression, a shut-down emotional system. But as he listened, he saw something different. Heinrich wasn't disconnected, he was transparent. People insulted him, and their words didn't stick. He was criticized, and he became curious. He was betrayed, and it only deepened his insight into others. Jung dug deeper, and what he found changed everything. 3 years earlier, Heinrich had been devastated by a betrayal. His closest business partner stole a massive client, nearly collapsing his empire. It should have shattered him. Instead, it awakened him. He asked himself one question. A question so powerful. It would become the foundation for Jung's theory of emotional impermeability. What part of me is this person reflecting? His partner's greed. It mirrored Heinrich's own hidden fear of poverty. His dishonesty, a reflection of Heinrich's own avoidance of speaking truth. His betrayal, a mirror for Heinrich's suppressed selfishness. He didn't react. He reflected. And that single act, choosing self-inquiry over projection, was the moment Heinrich stepped out of the emotional matrix that controls most of us. Jung called this the shadow mirror effect. And it leads us to one of the most viral truths from all of Jung's work. Every person who angers you is showing you something about yourself. Heinrich had integrated his shadow so completely that other people's behavior simply lost its power. He no longer borrowed his identity from their opinions. He no longer relied on their behavior to feel centered. He no longer needed their approval or their rejection to know who he was. To others, Heinrich seemed supernatural, but to Jung, he was the living proof that peace isn't performance. It's the byproduct of psychological integration. And if you want to experience that kind of unshakable calm, not the kind you fake, but the kind that's real, then you need to meet your shadow. Because that's where this journey really begins. Carl Jung believed that inside each of us lives a hidden figure, not a monster, not a demon, but a part of ourselves we've disowned. He called it the shadow. The shadow is everything you suppress, everything you were told was too much or not enough, too sensitive, too angry, too proud, too needy, too selfish, too loud. So you buried it. You locked it away. And in its place, you built a persona, a mask, to survive. But here's the truth. The shadow doesn't die. It hides. And it returns, not as nightmares, but as other people. This is why you're triggered. That arrogant coworker? A mirror for the confidence you were punished for. That emotionally detached friend? A reflection of your own hidden need for connection. That person who talks over you. A symbol of the part of you that feels invisible. Jung wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." What we don't face in ourselves, we fight in others. But there's a way to break the cycle. It's not easy, but it is precise. And Jung gave us the tool, the shadow integration protocol. The next time you're triggered, before reacting, before exploding, Before shutting down, ask yourself these 3 questions. 1. What trait in this person am I judging most harshly? 2. Where do I exhibit this same trait, even in small ways? 3. What is this trigger trying to teach me about myself? Let's take Sarah, for example. She was constantly irritated by her coworker, Tom, who interrupted her during meetings. At first, she blamed him. He's disrespectful. He's insecure. He needs attention. But then she applied the protocol. What am I judging in Tom? His need for attention. Where do I do this? I dominate conversations when I feel insecure. What's it teaching me? That I still seek approval through performance. That's when everything changed. Tom didn't change, but Sarah did. She saw him not as an aggressor, but as a mirror. And that realization shattered the trigger. Here's one of Jung's most piercing insights. Anger is unprocessed memory. Triggers are walking flashbacks. You're not reacting to the person in front of you. You're reacting to the part of you they awaken, the memory, the fear, the version of you who was never allowed to exist. When you bring that version into the light, not to shame it, but to hold it, the trigger loses its power. This is shadow integration, and it's the beginning of real peace. Because you're no longer battling the world. You're befriending the part of you that needed healing all along. Heinrich once described something extraordinary to Jung. He said, "When someone insults me, I feel time slow down. Their words hover in the air, like smoke. I can see them coming, but I no longer feel the need to catch them." This wasn't spiritual detachment. It was psychological precision. Jung called it the reaction gap, the hidden space between stimulus and response. Most people never find it. For them, reaction is automatic. Someone criticizes them, they defend. Someone ignores them, they collapse. Someone challenges them, they fight back. But between what happens to you and how you respond, there is a moment. And in that moment, you have a choice. This was Jung's next breakthrough. Emotional freedom doesn't come from suppression. It comes from inserting awareness between trigger and reaction. He called this the observer protocol, and it has only 3 steps. Step 1, pause. When you're triggered, don't react. Just breathe. Interrupt the reflex. Step 2, observe. Watch the trigger like a movie. What are they saying? What are you feeling? Where in your body is it landing? Step 3, choose. Now that you've seen it, now that you've watched it instead of becoming it, you get to respond with intention. You can reflect instead of retaliate. You can ask instead of assume. You can walk away or stay present from a place of grounded choice. Jung's insight? You are not your emotions. You are the consciousness that observes them. The next time someone tries to pull you into their chaos, remember this. You don't owe the world your reaction. You owe yourself your center. Reaction is easy. Observation is mastery. Because once you access the reaction gap, once you learn to see your anger instead of be it, no one can use it against you. And when that moment of choice becomes your default, you don't just stay calm, you become untouchable. Most people have no psychological boundaries. They absorb other people's stress, soak up their moods, internalize their judgments. They confuse criticism with truth. They confuse attention with love. They confuse other people's chaos with their responsibility. Jung discovered that those who had achieved emotional impermeability had something rare and radical, what he called a boundary fortress. Not walls, not distance, but selective filters, invisible internal systems that determine what gets in and what stays out. There are 3 levels to this fortress. 1. The relevance filter. These individuals had trained themselves to only absorb what served their growth. Everything else, observed but not absorbed. Noted but not owned. 2. The ownership boundary. They could distinguish between their emotions and everyone else's. If someone was angry at them, they didn't feel angry about that anger. They understood, this is your emotion. I don't need to carry it. 3. The identity anchor. They had such a clear sense of self that no insult, no praise, no rejection could shake them. They didn't source their worth from outside voices. They were already home within themselves. This wasn't theory. Jung saw it in action again and again. Take David, a software engineer constantly berated by a demanding boss. At first, David's mood was tethered to every meeting. But using Jung's fortress model, David created a psychological firewall. Before entering the office, he decided, I will observe stress, but not absorb it. He pre-selected calm, professional responses, no matter the trigger. And he anchored his identity in competence and growth, not his boss's approval. The result? He became untouchable. And ironically, the calmer he became, the more his boss respected him. That's the paradox Jung uncovered. People can only disturb my peace if I give them permission. When you construct your boundary fortress, you don't become detached, you become clear. And in that clarity, people stop pushing. Because the fortress isn't hard, it's secure. It doesn't keep the world out, it keeps you in. Now let's go deeper, into one of Jung's most disturbing realizations. Most human conflict isn't personal, it's psychological projection. When someone criticizes you, when they mock you, belittle you, attack you, they're not actually describing you, they're revealing themselves. Jung saw this over and over in his clinical work. But one case stood out. A rival once publicly humiliated Heinrich, calling him a heartless profiteer who cares nothing for his workers. Everyone expected Heinrich to retaliate. He didn't. Instead, he turned to Jung and said, "This man's attack told me everything about his psychology, and nothing about mine." He wasn't being arrogant. He was using what Jung called projection reversal, the ability to see through personal attacks to the pain underneath. Let's break it down. When someone attacks you, Jung taught us to ask 3 diagnostic questions. 1. What quality are they attacking in me? 2. Where might they struggle with this same quality? 3. What fear or pain might be driving this attack? This was Heinrich's genius. He didn't see enemies. He saw X-rays, and so can you. Lisa, a young graphic designer, was devastated when a client called her work amateur and unprofessional. But instead of collapsing, she applied projection reversal. She remembered the client confessing that he often felt like an imposter in his industry. Suddenly, she saw the truth. His insult wasn't about her work. It was about his fear of being exposed. And with that, her pain dissolved. Because once you see the wound, you stop taking the weapon personally. Jung said it best. When someone attacks you, they're showing their wound, not your worth. And here's where it gets even more profound. Heinrich once told Jung, "When I'm attacked now, I don't see an enemy. I see a wounded child crying out in pain. That's not weakness. That's X-ray vision. And it's only possible when your ego no longer needs to win, because your awareness has already understood." Now imagine this. Every person who frustrates you, every insult that stings, every rejection that triggers your deepest insecurities. What if none of them were enemies? What if they were allies, unconscious teachers, sent to help you grow? This wasn't fantasy. It was Jung's final, most radical discovery. He called it emotional alchemy, the ability to transform psychological pain into personal power. Heinrich said it like this: "I no longer see difficult people as problems to avoid. I see them as teachers, bringing me the lessons I most need to grow." This isn't spiritual bypassing, it's discipline. It starts with what Jung called trigger mining. You get triggered? Good. Now dig. Ask. What is this person teaching me about myself? What weakness are they exposing? What shadow part of me are they waking up? Take Marcus, a sales manager constantly triggered by his team's laziness. At first, he just got angry. But then, he mined the trigger. He asked, "Why do I expect everyone to have my same drive? Am I inspiring them, or just demanding compliance? What leadership skill am I being forced to develop?" That's when everything changed. Marcus stopped managing and started motivating. He learned to connect with his team's goals, not just his own. And the lazy team? They transformed because he did. That's strength synthesis, the final stage of alchemy. Turning your exposed wounds into developed abilities. This is what makes you emotionally untouchable. Not because you've numbed yourself, but because you've recycled pain into wisdom. Difficult people aren't enemies, Jung might say. They're unconscious allies in your growth. So the next time someone frustrates you, don't just react, study. Because if you're willing to learn, the very people who once triggered you become the reason you evolve. That's emotional alchemy. That's how the wound becomes the weapon. But there's one final step, one last transformation on this journey toward emotional immunity. You don't stop at being untouchable. You become untouchable and compassionate. Jung called this the path of the compassionate warrior, the rare individual who can hold both psychological strength and deep humanity. This is where Heinrich ultimately arrived. His presence alone began to calm others, not because he suppressed his emotions, but because he mastered them. He could sit with someone's anger without absorbing it. He could hear another's pain without being overwhelmed. He could listen without fixing, witness without judging, care without collapsing. And that's the paradox. True immunity isn't cold. It's warm. It doesn't build walls. It creates space. Heinrich once told Jung, "I realized my immunity was incomplete if it only protected me." True strength means creating space for others to feel their emotions, without losing myself in the process. You see, when you've done the work, when you've met your shadow, walked through your triggers, reversed the projections, built your boundary fortress, and practiced emotional alchemy, you no longer need to be protected from people. You can finally show up for them. You don't shrink when people lash out. You don't chase when they withdraw. You don't react. You respond. This is emotional Aikido. When someone brings you anger, you redirect it towards solutions. When they bring you fear, you meet it with grounded clarity. When they collapse, you stay rooted, not to save them, but to show them what's possible. And yes, it's lonely at first. You'll see what others can't. You'll feel like the only adult in a room of wounded children. But then, something shifts. Your presence becomes an anchor, a mirror, a lighthouse, and others, the ones who are ready, will rise to meet you. Because the compassionate warrior doesn't stand above the world. He stands within it, centered, still and awake. And in that stillness, you don't just become strong, you become safe, not only for yourself, but for everyone you love. That's not detachment, that's mastery. So let's bring this home. Carl Jung's most disturbing discovery wasn't just about anger. It was about the power hidden beneath it. You were never reacting to the world. You were reacting to yourself, to the part of you waiting to be seen, understood, integrated. And the moment you stop blaming, the moment you stop outsourcing your identity, that's the moment you become free. This is not about suppression. It's not about faking calm or avoiding conflict. It's about becoming whole. Because as Jung wrote, wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration of the contraries. Your shadow isn't the enemy. Your triggers aren't the problem. They're invitations. And if you accept them, fully, courageously, you won't just stop being reactive. You'll start being rooted. You'll walk into any room, face any person, hear any insult, and remain unmoved. Not because you don't care, but because you no longer confuse their chaos for your truth. As Jung said, I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. So choose now. Choose to stop being a puppet of unconscious emotion. Choose to build the reaction gap. Choose the shadow mirror. Choose the compassionate warrior. Choose peace, not as numbness, but as deep self-possession. And if this video stirred something inside you, if it reminded you of who you could be, then like it, share it, and comment below, I am rooted, not reactive. Because that declaration might just become your turning point. This isn't the end. It's the beginning of sovereignty, of stillness, of you.